Try that again. Okay, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. So we are going to continue with topical topics, okay? Instead of focusing on Hilchos Shabbos, Kashrus, etc., instead of picking topics. Last week we spoke about coffee. Today we're going to speak about things that go in your mouth or on your mouth. There's a lot there, and I'm sure there are things which I'm missing. But we're going to begin by talking about toothpaste. We'll eventually get to things. There are handouts over there if you'd like. We'll eventually get to probably my favorite invention in the world. People say that sliced bread was the best invention, but these guys, hands down, are the best invention in the world. Listerine strips? No? Anyone? Yeah? Okay. They're brilliant. Listerine in a strip, as opposed to having to put things in your, gargle something. There you go. No, it just dissolves in your mouth. It dissolves in your mouth. They're brilliant. Okay, anyway, but we'll get back to them. They're my little favorite thing. Okay, so let's talk about all the things that go into your mouth, both in terms of kashrus, in terms of Pesach, in terms of Shabbos. So let's begin. There is a massive debate about toothpaste, whether or not toothpaste has to be kosher or not. Do people look for a hechsher on their toothpaste? Probably not, but it's actually a matter of, do you? Really? Yeah. Not on kosher toothpaste? Okay, so where do you find a list? You use the Pesach list?
I don't know, but I know which ones they are.
Okay, interesting.
But I look at ingredients, I guess.
You look at ingredients, okay. Okay,
ingredients.
Fascinating. Sorry, what was that? Was there a comment? Okay.
I know at least for some things the Vine has, the Pesach time mills tell you what things are pasted, and then they might say, and then certain things
all year round
are fine.
Right.
So maybe you got it.
Yeah. Most people I know just pick up a tube of toothpaste. But the truth is, you're in good company. So this is a matter of a big debate. So bottom line is, there is possibly glycerin. Glycerin is something which helps the product dissolve, it's oftentimes not kosher. It's oftentimes made with fats of an animal. And so the question is that whether or not it has to be. So that is oftentimes in toothpaste. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky argues that there are other items which are in the toothpaste which nullify the glycerin. Now, normally when we talk about nullification in kashrus, I mean there's a ratio of 1 to 60 or 60 to 1. Which means that if someone drops a piece of pork in your cholent, okay, if it is a small piece of pork and there's 60 times that size of pork in your cholent, as bizarre and crazy as it sounds, it's 100% kosher. It's 100% kosher. I know most of you will probably throw it out, but it's kosher. It is 100% kosher. Well, now, over here with your toothpaste, it is certainly not a 1 to 60 ratio. There's presumably a lot more glycerin than that it won't be nullified 1 to 60. But Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky argues that the whole concept of 1 to 60 is based on a principle called nosein tam, because it gives off flavor. So when you're talking about food items, then you have to say, okay, the pork taste is going to be nullified by the other items in the cholent, and therefore you're allowed to eat it. But when something is not food, then we default to a more basic principle. Whenever you have two items together and you're questioning, what is this in front of me? We have a general principle called rov. Rov means majority. Whenever there is majority of X and there's a minority of Y, we look at it as X and not as X and Y. The majority takes over. And therefore, says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, since the majority, we're not talking about food items at all. Toothpaste is not food items. It's filled with a bunch of chemicals. Therefore, we will look at that. We don't need 60 to 1, and any glycerin in the toothpaste would be completely nullified. Rav Belsky disagrees, and he points out that back in the day, I'm trying to remember what was with a C. There was a ingredient that was the main ingredient in toothpaste back in the day. Anybody? Not glycerin, is with a C. I don't know, whatever it was. Anyways, it was oftentimes more chemical-based. And Rav Belsky, who is known for his thorough research of ingredients and things of that nature, says nowadays, it's not true, it's not fair to say that the majority of items in toothpaste are not food. At the end of the day, the majority of toothpaste is actually fully edible items. Okay, it's true. Don't swallow your toothpaste. But if you did, it's probably okay. It's not the biggest of deals. Every little kid probably swallows toothpaste every second day, right? The bottom line is that it's most of the products in toothpaste nowadays are still food items. And therefore, Belsky argues that no, toothpaste needs to be kosher. Toothpaste, you need to make sure that it's kosher, because at the end of the day, it is something that you're putting in your mouth. It is something which has food items. The notion of bittul, the notion of nullification, would not work. However, some push back and say, true. It's true that there are many food ingredients in toothpaste, but at the end of the day, if you were to show someone toothpaste and say, is this a food? The answer is absolutely not. And therefore, even if it's true that many of the items within toothpaste are edible and would be considered food in another context, but in a tube that says shiny white teeth and kills tartar or whatever it is, that is not called food, and therefore bittul would work. So this is a wide-ranging debate. I believe, although we have people, that most people are not machmir like Rabelsky. Most people, the minhag olam, the general custom is we do not need a hechsher on toothpaste, but there is good argument to be made that one could or should. When it comes to Pesach, we are more careful for a whole host of reasons, but when it comes to Pesach, I would strongly advise being careful to make sure that A, it's kosher, and B, that it doesn't have chametz in it as well. The Star K, OU, CRC usually have extensive lists. You don't have to buy like the off-brand stuff, which I don't even know if it's really toothpaste. I don't really know what's going on there. It's not FDA approved, but you could buy every year it's like Colgate, whatever, all the big companies. There are many normal toothpaste that are 100% kosher and kosher for Pesach. And Pesach, I would recommend being stringent. But when it comes to the rest of the year, the minhag olam is not like Rabelsky, and a person can just buy whatever toothpaste they find. Okay? Yes?
So, I don't see it here. Gel caps.
Okay, we're not going to talk about gel caps today, but that is, it's a matter...
Would that be the same?
It's different in the sense that you consume it, right? So there are more, meaning even though it's certainly not food, but as opposed to toothpaste, there's more of a reason when something, there's apparently, my dentist never told me this, but apparently like the trend, at least in some dental spaces, is to leave the toothpaste on your teeth. Is that something you've heard? Like not to rinse it out? I don't know. Apparently some dentists recommend this, I've never heard this. Sorry, yeah.
For certain medicated ones, they say
Okay.
don't rinse your mouth. You can spit, don't rinse your mouth afterwards.
Interesting. So poskim are a little more machmir about that. In other words, when it's something you're spitting out, it's going to be different. When it's something you're leaving in your mouth, or especially you're consuming, then there's much more concern. And therefore, with gel caps, which are made of gelatin, there are more poskim who are concerned about that. There's what's rely upon in a time of need. Or glycerin, yeah. There is what's rely upon because at the end of the day, it's not food and you're not consuming it as a regular food. So there is what's rely upon. If there's an alternative available, I would strongly recommend it. Because again, it's not the same as toothpaste. It's more because of the fact that it's going into your mouth, staying in your mouth, going into your body, there's room to be more machmir. Okay? Okay, fine. Let's talk about brushing teeth or mouthwash on a fast day. Okay? So, bottom line is, this is a bit of machlokas between Ashkenazim and Sfardim. The way that most Ashkenazi poskim land is that if a person is very uncomfortable on a fast day, and when I say fast day, I mean the minor fast days, not Tisha B'Av and not Yom Kippur. On Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, for the most part, poskim are machmir, but on a regular minor fast day. So Shavas Tammuz is around the corner, Tainus Esther, Tzom Gedalia, etc. A person is allowed to brush their teeth. They're even allowed to put a little bit of water on the toothpaste if that's what they like to do. You could gargle with mouthwash. If you're going to feel very uncomfortable, I think nowadays most people, the poskim earlier spoke about if you're someone who brushes every day, I don't know, I think that's fairly common, I'd like to believe, nowadays, so let's assume that it is. So assuming that you brush every day and it's uncomfortable for you to not brush on a regular day, then you would have what's rely upon to brush your teeth or to use mouthwash. It's not considered eating by most poskim, by virtually all poskim, even Rabelsky, who says, that it should be kosher, would not consider it to be full-fledged eating. However, the poskim do recommend that a person lean their mouth forward, because at the end of the day, you're going to swallow a little bit of mouthwash. It's going to happen. You're going to swallow a little bit of toothpaste. It's going to happen. We try to minimize as best as we can, and therefore we kind of put our face forward as a way of trying to ensure that the most, we'll use the force of gravity, trying to ensure that the most amount of toothpaste and mouthwash is going to exit our mouth. Okay, that is the halacha when it comes to brushing teeth or mouthwash on a fast day. Okay, let's get to Listerine strips. It looks like I'm the only person who uses Listerine strips because no one knows what they are. Okay, some people do. They're amazing. Okay, so fine. Bottom line is, the question is, how do we treat this? Do we treat this like mouthwash? Okay, or not? This has a number of ramifications. Okay, first let me just explain why it would be different than mouthwash. What's the difference between this and mouthwash? You just swallow it, right? It stays in your mouth. You don't swallow it. I want to be clear. It dissolves in your mouth. There's two things, right? You're not swallowing it. In other words, I don't put this in my mouth and immediately swallow it. That would be, that wouldn't really do its trick. The goal is for it to dissolve in your mouth, right? And so some say, well, ultimately it dissolves, you're not spitting it out, and therefore it's like food. And there are others who say that no, at the end of the day, it dissolves in your mouth. Now, this has massive ramifications for a number of things. Not only does it need a hechsher, by the way, these, when they first came out, they had a hechsher. I think it's a chafkei. Whatever, on the box. Trust me. Has a hechsher, but then for a while it lost a hechsher, and there was an uproar. Okay, there was an uproar. There was really people were very, very upset, and eventually they got a hechsher. They eventually got their hechsher back. But there is this question: Does this need to be kosher? Another question is okay, which we'll get to in a second. But fine, that is a question. Yeah.
This is really silly. Can you tell us whether they're just to freshen your mouth? Like, what are they for?
They're Listerine. It's to freshen your mouth.
Okay, so it's like instead of gargling.
Yeah. Is there a bird in here?
I don't know, there's something.
It's too loud for a bird.
Yeah, it sounds like a phone.
No, it's definitely an electronic sound.
Okay. Hope someone's electronics are okay. 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 Sorry, I'm just being distracted. Okay. And we're done. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, it's Listerine. It's the same thing as Listerine, as opposed to walking around with a little bottle where you have to gargle and spit it out on the floor. This is a little more polite. So you're in the middle of a meeting, you're about to go say hello to someone, you put this in your mouth quickly, and it immediately dissolves, and you have good breath. It's brilliant. Okay, so bottom line is, sorry? Yes. There's yes. I am. I just finished my box. Okay. So the bottom line is that okay. So on the one hand, it's something that you put in your mouth. At the same time, different than mouthwash because it stays in your mouth. There's another question as well. There is a big machlokes about tasting something which is not kosher for the sake of tasting it. So where this came up historically is you had soaps. Soaps were made from animal fats back in the day. Nowadays, I don't know what they're made of. They're not made of animal fats, but they're made of animal fats. And sometimes people would taste something. You need a certain amount of salt and this and that. And the poskim speak about people tasting these. I know it sounds ridiculous, putting it in their mouth to taste it, and then to spit it out. And the fact that you put it in your mouth to taste it, some poskim argued that there's a notion called achshave, from the word machshava. You are treating it as something which is food, even though normally soap goes on your hands, on your body. But at the end of the day, because you're putting it in your mouth, you're treating it like food. Does this concept of I'm treating it like food, does that apply to non-food items? In other words, even if you argue this is not really food, but the mere fact that I'm putting it in my mouth and tasting it, allowing it to stay there, is that enough to make it considered a food item? Okay, so here the bottom line is those are some of the factors that surround this question. Rav Shechter says there is no hechsher needed. Rav Shechter also says that you're allowed to use them on a minor fast day for that reason. Just like you're allowed to use Listerine, just like you're allowed to brush your teeth, you're also allowed to go ahead and take a Listerine strip. He says it's not that you are swallowing it. He says it's not that you're swallowing what's left. He says it dissolves. There's nothing left to spit out. In as much as on a regular fast day, of course, if I have saliva in my mouth, I could swallow it, right? There's no issue doing so. Basically there's no issue doing so. So similar over here, there's nothing left. It dissolves in my mouth, and therefore I'm allowed to swallow it. That is the opinion of Rav Shechter. Abelsky disagrees. He says no, a hechsher is needed, and also it's not allowed to be used on a minor fast day. Okay? Two valid opinions. It's yes.
Like some types of, not the gel caps, but some types of cough or suppressants be similar or something like medicine.
Well, there you have something. So again, a typical, it's typically going to be a can. I mean, if you have like a candy, that's clearly going to be a food item, right. Even if you're taken for for a cough or something like that. I can't think of a perfect parallel.
Like some arnica, where you just go and put in your mouth and you let it dissolve in your mouth.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
So it would be similar. It would be similar to that. Yeah, it would be similar. Another very interesting question comes up around these things, and potentially medicine of that nature, is whether or not you have to make a bracha on such a thing. Okay?
But it's smaller than it's like.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter how small. You could have a crumb. You'd have to make a bracha on a crumb. In other words, kazayas is only going to be relevant for after bracha, meaning anything you have, no matter how small it is, you'd have to make a bracha beforehand. Okay, so regarding a bracha, so let's talk about medicine for a moment. There is a debate about medicine with a good taste. Okay, this is not so well known, but let's say for children have amoxicillin, the pink bubblegum amoxicillin. It tastes pretty good, right? My kids get jealous of each other. When they got they have an ear infection or whatever it is, they're like, oh, I want to get some of that yummy pink stuff, right? So do you have to make a bracha on that? So Ramosha says, absolutely. The Shulchan Aruch writes, and the Shulchan Aruch writes in Orach Chaim, that in Reish Ches, I think, that he says that when you have medicine that you are, medicine that you're eating stuff for medicinal purposes, you have to make a bracha. As long as it has a good taste, you have to make a bracha. And therefore you have gummies that are going to be used for, vitamins, or you have different supplements or anything, or again, straight up medicine that has a good taste, you would have to make a bracha. Yes?
How objective or subjective is that? Because I have some people who hate medicine no matter how flavorful it is, and other people who like
Yeah, so we basically, it's a great question. We look basically at like the general norms. General norms, is this something which tastes good? The answer is yes. Meaning if you're an outlier who happens to love the taste of like, I don't know, whatever, something like...
Tylenol. Some kids are okay with it. I don't know if everyone loves it. Some kids are okay with it, and some kids really hate it. So.
Yeah, but if it's flavored. In other words, they're flavoring it because it's a good flavor. In other words, they don't put...
Tamiflu is flavored. I don't think anyone would say that tastes good.
I haven't had Tamiflu in a long time. Yeah, anything that they're anything you could assume that if they're flavoring it, they're not like, oh, let's put bad flavor in this. They put as much good flavor, so it has a decent taste. It's true, some people don't like it, but as long as it's like a decent taste, as long as it's like the majority of people would call this a decent taste, Ramosha would say you would have to say a bracha. Now, and it's based on a line in the Shulchan Aruch which says, if you eat food for medicinal purposes, then it's something you have to make a bracha on. Now, Rav Shlomo Zalman says, wait a second. What the Shulchan Aruch was talking about was when you eat food, which is not normally eaten, but it's still food, and you're eating it for medicinal purposes. He says, but medicine is not food. So Rav Shlomo Zalman argues, he says, no, medicine is its own category, kind of like we saw above with toothpaste. He says, there is no bracha on non-food items, when you eat non-food items. And therefore, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach argues, he says, no, the Shulchan Aruch is talking about eating, I don't know, some leaf or whatever that you wouldn't otherwise eat. You're eating for medicinal purposes, and it has a decent taste. Okay, you'll make a bracha. But if you're if you're eating something which is a pill, you're eating something which is syrup, you don't have to make a bracha at all because it's not food. Brachas are only made on food, and that's Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's argument. I would point out most poskim actually rule like Ramosha, and if it is a good tasting, it's a positive tasting item, you should. A vitamin gummy, you definitely should make a bracha. You definitely should make a bracha. Okay, that is, however, when something is eaten. So Rabelsky, who treats these Listerine strips as something which is food-like, and that's why he needs a hechsher, and that's why he says not to have it on a fast, he would hold, you would need to make a bracha, shahakol, every time you have one of these. If you notice when I had one, I did not make a shahakol, and that's because I think the normative ruling is like Rav Shechter, who says, no, at the end of the day, you're not eating it, it dissolves, and therefore, you do not need to make a bracha. Okay? Questions? Thoughts? Yes.
I have two questions. One thing about something staying in your mouth. What about whitening strips? Do you have to worry about the hechsher on those? They stay for a while.
So again, this is part of this machlokas. In other words, on the one hand, it's not food; they don't taste good. I'm assuming. Someone told me, I don't remember which company now. There is a company that has like a chafke on it, I think. I'm sure there's a billion different companies, but the bottom line is it's like toothpaste. Bottom line, right? It's no worse than toothpaste. And as much as toothpaste is something where it's in your mouth, most poskim, again, certainly during the year, on Pesach, I'd be a little more concerned, but whitening strips during the year, no different than toothpaste. It's in your mouth, you spit it out, right? It's not like something, you keep it in your mouth, and then you take it off. You spit out whatever liquid, is found in your mouth, and therefore it would be no different than toothpaste, where most poskim would say you do not need to have hechsher. That was question number one.
Question two is, Colgate makes these mini toothbrushes. They're designed to brush on the go.
Cool.
So you don't spit, right? Because they're on the go.
Uh-huh.
So my kids were like, no, we heard they're not kosher, we can't use them. So
And the
Those
what?
ones that have the toothpaste in it,
yeah, it's a little toothbrush.
Uh-huh.
It has it like something
it's
there
got toothpaste
in
inside
it, and then it has a little flosser at the end. They're great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I would say Rabelsky would say, yes, you'd have to get, first of all, I don't know, meaning if you use regular Colgate, I don't know which toothpaste they put in it, but
Apparently this one is trained. So
okay. So again, most poskim would say it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter
Most,
if you're going to swallow it.
yeah, because they'd say, again, it is a little bit worse than, so I want to be clear. I shouldn't say most poskim. This is worse than toothpaste, right? Because regular toothpaste person typically does spit out. But it's in the same category as Listerine strips, where it's more machmir. There are certainly more poskim who would say that's problematic. In other words, when this lost their hechsher, there were more, or if Shechter would say it's fine, there are more poskim here because, again, it's dissolved / gets swallowed. It's more challenging. Is there what to rely upon? 100%. Is it different than toothpaste? It's also different. It's also more, you should be more, there's room to be more machmir than regular toothpaste. Yes?
Would gum fall into the same category because it's not food? You eat it for the flavor. So would it be the same machlokas between?
So most poskim say at the end of the day, that's you're getting the juice that's trapped in it, and basically at that, even though you're spitting out the gum that's left over there, at the end of the day you're drinking the juice or whatever the flavor that's stuck in it, and you're doing it also. And there certainly you have a concept of achshave. In other words, there you're really treating achshave means I'm treating this as food. Everyone would say gum is found. The example like Listerine strips and gum. Gum is found in the candy aisle. Listerine strips are found in the toothpaste aisle. I am saying that's not. So we treat toothpaste, this thing as and those toothbrushes as dental things, and this is something totally different. And gum is food. So at the very least, you have achshave acting on it. There is an interesting machlokas about what bracha to make on gum, because the fact that at least historically, gum was made with a plant, by mastic plants, right? Where the word mastic comes from. But nowadays, what's gum made out of? Plastic particles. Okay, FYI. Just plastic particles. Yeah, okay. I learned this other day. I was talking about gum in some shir, and someone's like, "Oh yeah, this guy so apparently there's very few crunchy companies that still sell real gum that's made out of the mastic plant or whatever it's called. But basically, most gum is just basically thousands of plastic particles, which are still somehow being absorbed in your body when you have the liquid. We're all still here, so it's okay. Okay, fine. Let's talk about lipstick and whether or not you need to have kosher lipstick. So most poskim say that at the end of the day, lipstick is not consumed. And even though with lipstick, it's a little more complicated because if you've ever, all you know this. What's it called? Okay, anyway, the point is that oftentimes you'll drink and you'll say the lipstick's going to be on your cup. It's going to be in the food, right? The lipstick gets out there. So it's going to get mixed into your food if a person has lipstick. And most folks can say at the end of the day, it's something which is mixed. It's batel berov. At the end of the day, the minuscule amount of lipstick that gets mixed in is not a problem. Most poskim say there is no issue at all with lipstick being kosher. However, when it comes to Pesach, anything that is on one's lips or in one's mouth should be certified as something which is kosher for Pesach. So ideally, again, is there what to rely upon for Pesach? If a person just wants to go ahead and use their lipstick from the whole year, totally fine. But there is room. We are generally machmir around Pesach for things that go in our mouth or on our mouth to make sure that they are kosher for Pesach. Okay, fine. Lipstick and chapstick on Shabbos. Okay, so let's talk about that. So there are two issues when it comes to lipstick specifically, and that is one is tzoveya, coloring. One of the 39 prohibited activities on Shabbos is to color something, to change the color of something. And if a person puts some lipstick on, they are changing the color. The other prohibition is mimareach. Anytime you have a solid, which you end up going ahead and smoothing, okay, so basically like a bar of soap or anything of that nature, that is going to be a prohibition of smoothing, which is also prohibited on Shabbos. And therefore, for those two reasons, lipstick is going to be an issue of both soveya as well as mimareach, smoothing. Okay, there is something called powder lipstick, which some of you may be familiar with. What is known as the Shabbos cosmetics. This is a matter of, so I don't know how well they work. Many people say it's whatever. Okay, I'm not. Some people watching this might be mad at me, so I'm just gonna. So we have people who sell kosher cosmetics. So I don't know. I know people use it. So whatever. Anyway, the bottom line is, but the bottom line is that there is what to rely upon. Lipstick is more the powdered lipstick. So once it's powdered, then first of all, if it's powdered and it doesn't last for that long, it may not be an issue of tzoveya. Tzoveya is when it's more something long lasting, and something like a powder, it doesn't really last that long. Okay, and the fact that it's not mimareach. Mimareach is when you have like a cream or a solid that you're rubbing. This is not that, and therefore there is what to rely upon. Many poskim are quite hesitant around using it. There are other types of powder cosmetics which are less complicated. Around the lips, it is in some ways more complicated, but then you have to go through. They have specific instructions, Star K, which certifies some of these powdered cosmetics. You have to read the actual instructions because some have to be done in a very specific way. If there's moisture there, then you put the powder together with it, and then it's actually going to be problematic because then it's actually no longer. Sorry. Yeah, then it's going to be problematic. The poskim do ask, wait a second, what about on your lips? There's moisture constantly on your lips. You're spitting, and as we speak, there's just moisture on our lips. Most poskim say that's too minuscule. It's not really going to impact the powder. But again, there's what's rely upon if it's very important for a person to, if a person, their lipstick doesn't stay, and it's very, very important for a person. There's what's rely upon. Some poskim don't love it. Yes.
So, I was told that the roll on clear lip gloss is okay because it's not smoothing, it's not coloring.
Right.
And to use it on Shabbos means you're not picking your lips and peeling off and tearing the skin, which is also not permitted.
Right. So most poskim, so lip gloss is very interesting. So lip gloss, you would think at the end of the day, lip gloss is what color? No color. It's just a sheen, right? It's just a shine, right? So at the end of the day, it sounds like it should be permitted. Most poskim, it's based on a line in the Mishnah Berurah, but most of the major poskim are of the opinion that it's actually a form of tzoveya. Okay, now I know this is a little bit surprising. There's an argument to be made that no, it's not coloring at all. And there's a good argument to be made that it's okay, but I don't believe there are any major poskim who allow it. Most major poskim come out that using lip gloss, even though again there's no color, but making a shine is a form of tzovea. The Mishnah Berurah speaks about a very particular case where again it's similar type of thing where he describes tzovea as not necessarily adding a different color, but adding like a shade, right? Adding a shine is going to be something, not a shade, but basically adding a shine is a form of tzovea, and therefore there are poskim who say, many poskim, again, I'd say the majority of poskim, major poskim, say that using lip gloss on Shabbos, again, clear, even if it's like a quasi-liquid type of, it's more of the liquid form, it's still going to be an issue, even if it's not mimarech, right? So just to explain, lip gloss, right, is much more liquidy, right? It's much more viscous, and therefore mimarech would not typically apply, because mimarech is usually going to be when it's a thicker type of cream or something like that. Lip gloss oftentimes could even have like the roll-on type, I guess, right? Or it's just like liquid, complete liquid, more or less complete liquid. So there's definitely no mimarech issue, but most poskim say that there still is a tzovea issue.
I've watched from kids.
I'm not saying it's, again, there's what?
They actually put like fruit.
Oh, fruit. Oh.
Like watermelon or whatever, just because, at least keep your lips a little smooth.
A little smooth.
Little kids, you're talking about peeling
Right.
off your skin and
Yeah, right. I mean, you can't do one. Meaning, if it's prohibited, the fact that it's preventing you from doing another prohibited activity is not allowed. If a person wants to go out and eat food, drink or eats fruits and put them on their mouth, that's eating. Again, that's not. We wouldn't treat that as putting on lip gloss. But again, most posts. Again, if you see someone putting on lip gloss, it's one of those examples. You don't throw rocks at someone. There's a good argument to be made. It's not tzovea. It's usually not mimarech. Again, most poskim, the major poskim say it is a form of tzovea. Yes.
Did you put oil? Did you put oil on your?
So yeah, many poskim say if your lips are chapped, you could put oil on your lips. Yeah.
How is the oil different than that? Like, I mean,
It's not
they still
shiny.
sell it in the kosher makeup places that roll on.
Okay. Again, there's.
But I heard that, I don't remember, I don't remember Humphrey used to say it was okay, and then they said no, but I think Rabbi Blumenkranz still says it is, something like that.
Well, he can't change his mind at this point.
Well,
Sorry.
Rav Heinemann did, or Rav Hopper did.
No,
something.
he's not living
Well,
anymore. Sorry.
right.
Okay, sorry. It could be. Most.
I don't know.
Yeah. Again, there's a good argument to be made that it's hard logically to hear that at the end of the day it's just changing. It's still the same color.
But most say no.
Most poskim say no. I'm just reporting over here. Most poskim say at the end of the day that is a form of tzovea. It's too shiny. Like it's sorry.
Oil is yes or no?
Oil of many poskim would be even more lenient, even though there is certainly a little bit of a shine over there. But gloss is much more. Going to have much more of a shine. It's much more distinct and much more of a thing. Much more of a difference. Okay. Yes.
Just Vaseline.
So Vaseline, lip gloss, Vaseline or chapstick would certainly be an issue in mimarech. Certainly, according to most poskim, those would be an issue. Certainly, the Vaseline itself, the chapstick is.
If you're using it for
Medicinal purposes actually make it worse, right? Because let's review very briefly, but you're allowed to use. There's like there's like really 2 or 3 categories when it comes to medicine. Obviously, we're not something life-threatening, but you're not allowed to medicine which is not in a situation where a person is in much extreme distress is actually forbidden on Shabbos. It doesn't make it better; it makes it worse. In other words, there's like swallowing a pill if you have a regular like a general headache on Shabbos is usher. The fact that you're doing it for medicinal purposes is not an allowance. There's actually an extra prohibition against doing things for medicinal purposes on Shabbos. Wow. So why it's a decree? Because of a concern of mixing the herbs, which was done. So basically, it's like this broad decree, which from a biblical, making medicine to make medicine, you need to go ahead and crush, the medicine. Meaning I'm talking about the orally substance process. Because of that, there's a wide-ranging decree against taking any medicine unless your person's like bedridden or things of that nature. But if you have like chapped lips, assuming that you could function, assuming you could get out, it looks a little not great.
Daily medicine that you take.
No. So daily medicine, without getting into a whole discussion, daily medicine is allowed. Yeah, not extra things. There's some discussion around daily vitamins if you need to take daily vitamins. But if you have a headache, if you have like a low-grade headache, in other words, you could go out, you'd go to work, you wouldn't if it was something you take the day off, you're lying in bed, then you could take medicine. But if it's something where you would, you'd go, whatever, if it's something important, you have a flight to Australia you have to catch, you're going. You're not not sticking around. You have some big day at work, you'd go. Then the bottom line is you wouldn't be able to take medicine for such a thing. Yeah.
But if you take something on a regular basis.
Then you could and should take it. Correct. Okay. Yes? Good? Okay. This class is going a lot faster than I thought. Okay, let's talk about dam. Dam. There is a prohibition against eating blood. Okay, that is mentioned over and over again in the Torah. Why it's mentioned so many times is a matter of much discussion and debate. But when it comes, this prohibition against blood is actually animal blood. But when it comes to human blood, there is a rabbinic decree against human blood. It is not a biblical decree. It is only a rabbinic decree. And the issue is an issue of maras ayin. The issue of maras ayin, that a person may see this. So, for example, why is that important? That's important because if you ever bite your tongue or whatever it is, or you have like some, I don't know, I was eating yesterday, I bit my cheek or whatever it is, there's a little blood, or, your tooth falls, well, not any of us hopefully, but our person's tooth falls down, they have blood. Do you have to go ahead and spit? I mean, you probably want to, because it's probably, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's just disgusting. I don't think it probably doesn't hurt you to drink some blood, but the bottom is 100% fine. There is no issue whatsoever if you don't want to spit out that blood, and you want to go ahead and swallow it because you just don't want to spit it out, there'd be no issue whatsoever. It's when blood is outside your body, even your own blood, and then you go ahead and you consume it, that's where it's going to be an issue because of maras ayin. So, for example, there's an interesting debate, actually, about a cut on a finger. Is there maras ayin? If I have a cut on my finger, on the one hand, it's out of my body. At the same time, I could see it's coming from a cut, right? So most poskim say you still should not go ahead and suck on it because of that reason, because it still is a form of maras ayin, that it looks like you're drinking, external blood, even though there's arguments to be made, it's very clear that this is your blood, okay? But the bottom line is, if it's blood which is not on a finger, let's say you're eating an apple, right? This happens sometimes, depends how much you floss or whatever, or I don't know, depends how good your teeth are, but sometimes you're eating an apple, and what happens? There's a little blood on the apple, right? It happens, right? So in such a case, the poskim say you need to rinse it off, because it's outside your mouth, and there's blood over here, and then you're about to put it back in your mouth, you'd have to rinse it off. So similarly, a person who brushes their teeth or flosses, right? And, sometimes there's blood. So if a person sees blood, they really should not continue brushing. They really should rinse it off before putting that toothbrush back in their mouth. Again, based on this rabbinic decree of maras ayin, of consuming even one's own blood. Yes?
Wow, so when I floss, not to share too much, this is a lie. So I have to wash the flosser off every single time before I put it back in my mouth?
So two things. Well, one thing. First of all, if you keep your floss in your mouth, there'd be no issue. It's that when you take it out and then put it back in, that's when there's going to be an issue. Totally fine, because it's staying in your mouth.
It sounds funny, but if I'm looking in the mirror and I can see blood on the floss, I have to take it out and rinse.
That's a good question. Yeah, no, I mean, the poskim say if it's something in your mouth, you don't have to take it out. Something outside of your mouth, then you would. Meaning, because it's clear as long as it's in your, meaning the decree is outside your mouth. So the bottom line is it's in your mouth, it's clear, meaning even though anyone walking, I know where this blood came from. If you have blood on floss, it's not like I went and dipped in my, the dead cat next to me and then put it back in my mouth. Sorry. But the point is, obviously it came from your mouth, but the bottom line is the decree is anything outside your mouth is a problem. Anything, as long as it's in your mouth, it's very clear. If I open... Sorry to be graphic, if you open your mouth and there's blood on your tongue, you're allowed to still close your mouth and swallow that blood because it's still in your mouth. So, bottom line is you can see it in the mirror. It's okay. Yeah. And good for you for flossing. Yeah.
Don't hate me for this, but I seem to remember a while ago that you said you would do a class of maras ayin.
I did. I don't hate you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Good. Good. Yes. Thank you for the bathroom. Okay. Okay. Good call. Thank you for the reminder. I'm not saying we're doing it next week, but thank you for the reminder. Okay. So one last thing, brushing your teeth on Shabbos. Okay. So let's talk about the different steps. Can a person brush their teeth on Shabbos? Sort of. Maybe. Depends. So like this. Toothpaste, according to most, is mimarech. Again, mimarech is taking a somewhat solid substance and smoothing it. So many hold, right, virtually all poskim hold that even if it's not a full-fledged solid like a bar of soap, but it's like toothpaste, it would still be mimarech. So if you put it on your toothbrush, so it's not the putting it on the toothbrush that's the issue, by the way. I want to be clear. Putting it on the toothbrush, there's no issue there. The issue is once you start brushing your teeth, then you're rubbing that solid, that's where it's going to be a problem, okay? So what you could do, first of all, is of course you could use mouthwash, which has a lot of this stuff. You could also do something interesting that one of my teachers once taught us, that they did in the Chevron Yeshiva apparently, is they would put toothpaste on their finger, okay? And then they'd go ahead and they put the toothpaste in their mouth, put a little bit of water, and then gargle the toothpaste. Okay, so you get all the... So, mimarech is only when I'm actually going ahead and smoothing it, right? So if I go ahead and I gargle the toothpaste, it's going to break up its little particles. I'll get all the whatever stuff is really in the toothpaste, whatever it is. And it's not the same, obviously, as brushing, but in terms of the toothpaste, I would be allowed to do that, okay? So there is a way of using toothpaste on Shabbos. Either, again, you could use mouthwash, or you could just you can't rub the toothpaste on your teeth, but you would be allowed to put the toothpaste in your mouth and gargle with water. Yes?
Liquid toothpaste.
No, I mean regular toothpaste. I mean just,
Can you use liquid toothpaste?
You
on
can't
shabbos?
find that anymore.
I don't even know what liquid toothpaste is.
They used to sell it in Israel, but
Yeah.
Oh.
you can't even get it anymore.
Interesting. Oh, they had those little funny tops. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, I haven't seen those. Yes. Yeah, that's fine. That's 100% fine because there's no memoreach. Now we're going to talk about the toothbrushes in a moment, right? So that takes care of the toothpaste, but the toothbrush is going to be another issue. So the rubber toothbrushes, right? So with the toothbrush, there's the issue of sorry. $13 a piece. So toothbrush, so here's the deal. You don't have to buy those toothbrushes. To use a toothbrush with water, right, there's an issue on Shabbos called schita. Schita is whenever there's water captured in something, even if it's not literally absorbed, but it's there within the bristles, you're not allowed to use it, right? As we spoke about in the past, Shabbos sponges where there's like big gaps between it, that if you pour water, that the water goes immediately through. So that is also going to be something which captures the water. That's why it's schita. That's forbidden. But so a regular toothbrush, there would be an issue with schita. So to use water, right, to have water in the toothbrush, even to have your toothpaste in it, and it's going to get in the toothbrush, and you're squeezing it out, is an issue of schita. So basically, what you would not be allowed to, so basically, to put to put toothpaste in your toothbrush, and then to brush, what ends up happening is the toothpaste goes into the toothbrush, the bristles, and then it squeezes out. That is I shouldn't say full-fledged. According to the vast majority of poskim, that is schita, okay? And therefore be forbidden. What you are allowed to do is use a dry toothbrush, and brush your teeth. That is 100% fine. To use a dry toothbrush, again, so it's true. There's a little bit of saliva that's in your mouth that's going to get into the toothbrush. Most poskim say that's too insignificant, and that's not called schita, right? Meaning, schita also, your kavana plays a role, and the bottom line is a little bit of your saliva that gets in there, that's not a problem, and therefore to use a dry toothbrush, according to all poskim, that would be okay. One last thing, and that is that, then we'll take a question. One last thing, and that is there's a question of, is this considered a weekday activity? There's a general prohibition, which is always very hard to define, called uvda dechol, which means a weekday activity. Okay, and it's a real thing. It's not like, it's not Shabbostic. It's not like a thing that sometimes people throw it around whenever they want, but it's a real thing, like where the Gemara's already talking about things which are not Shabbos-like, and therefore you need to do something. You need to do it in a different way if you're going to do it on Shabbos. So some poskim say, since most people don't brush their teeth on Shabbos, even though technically you could, but most people don't, and you have to brush your teeth in this unique fashion, therefore toothbrushes are considered a weekday activity. Brushing your teeth is a weekday activity, and if you want to brush your teeth on Shabbos, you'd have to get a special Shabbos toothbrush. Okay? Other poskim, Rav Shechter and others say, no, at the end of the day, you could brush your teeth on Shabbos. There's no problem brushing your teeth on Shabbos. It happens to be that you have to do it in a special way. But there's nothing about intrinsic to brushing your teeth that is something which is non-Shabbostic, and therefore he says, and I would say we could rely on this, no problem, and that is that you could use a weekday toothbrush. So again, to brush your teeth on Shabbos, to put toothpaste on your toothbrush and brush your teeth, Asr. What you are allowed to do, if you want to use toothpaste, to put some toothpaste on your finger, put it in your mouth, put some water there, gargle it, you got your toothpaste. Spit it out, take a toothbrush, brush your teeth, dry toothbrush, totally fine, and that would be okay on Shabbos. Yes?
The two questions. So, first of all, if you rinse, you said the problem with the water toothbrush is you're going to squeeze it out. So if you just rinse your toothbrush after you use it and shake it out, is that okay? I'm used to taking out my toothbrush after.
Right. Yeah, I mean, schita would have to be really pushing it, meaning if I shake a sponge, I don't think that's an issue. There is, some poskim do actually bring up an interesting question about washing it after. They say, are you allowed to wash it after because are you preparing for weekday? Right? So in other words, if you think you're going to use it again on Shabbos, right? Let's use it Friday nights, and you think you're going to use Shabbos today, you're going to use it again, there's no problem, right? But there's a problem of preparing for Shabbos for weekday, so if it's Shabbos afternoon, you're brushing your teeth, you shouldn't rinse it off, because some would argue that it's like washing dishes at the end of Shabbos for after Shabbos, that's forbidden.
And also, what about toothpaste? It's like just toothpaste in your toothbrush, because you don't like sit there scrubbing it after you.
Yeah, it's minuscule, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
There's also, sorry.
Go ahead.
There are brush-ups. Does anyone know about these things? They're like just this thing that you put on your finger, and it has like mouthwash in it, and you can just.
What, is it bristles or it's a?
No, it's just like it's a cloth kind of thing. I can bring it in.
Okay, I'm afraid so. Wait, if it's a cloth, it could be problematic. There might be a schita issue.
It doesn't dissolve, but like when it has contact with your saliva.
It brings things out of it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what those are. I'm afraid to weigh in. Yeah. Yes.
I'm sure I want to ask this. Putting Listerine in your mouth and then using a Shabbos toothbrush and swishing it around.
So Shabbos toothbrush is fine because there's.
But even like instead of toothpaste, I use Listerine.
Yeah. So then
So you're brushing your teeth with a Shabbos.
yeah, the Shabbos
with-
toothbrush avoids the schita issue, right? So there's no mimareach because you're using Listerine, and then there's no schita because it's not capturing it, and therefore your $13 toothbrush is very good investment. Okay, have a great day. If anyone has any other topics, we'll try to pick up.